Hello there. Welcome to Just About Space. You're staring into the night sky again. A familiar ritual. It's quiet, peaceful. You think you're seeing something eternal. The glowing tips of ancient celestial mountains, still shining like they did long before your ancestors even knew how to look up. But what if I told you that some of those stars are already dead? Their light is still traveling, still telling you a story that ended millions of years ago. You're watching ghosts. You're watching the past. In the most literal sense, you're watching something that isn't there anymore. And it gets stranger. The farther you look, the further back in time you go. Space is not just a place, it's a delay, a distortion, a hall of mirrors playing tricks with time, truth, and your tiny place inside it. What looks calm and still is often chaotic and gone. What looks close might be impossibly distant. What looks real may never have been. In this journey, we're going to explore what it really means to see the stars, and why so much of what you perceive in space is built on illusion. We'll explore supernovae that erupted before the dinosaurs, galaxies that may no longer exist, and light that spent billions of years just to reach your eyes for a split second before fading into your forgetfulness. We'll talk about cosmic memory, about the cruel honesty of light, about how time doesn't flow, it fractures. So, tuck yourself in, let your eyes stay soft and your breathing slow. You don't need to move, you don't need to understand everything, just let yourself drift. Because out here, in space, nothing is quite what it seems. You look up at the night sky and think you're seeing something live, as if the stars are shining for you in real time, performing like distant actors on a cosmic stage. But nothing in the sky is happening now. Not really. What you're seeing is a delay, a cosmic memory, light that took its time. The nearest star to you, aside from the sun, is over 4 light years away. That means the light hitting your eyes tonight left that star 4 years ago. If something happened to it last Tuesday, you won't know for 4 more years. The star could have vanished, and you would still be looking at its last whisper. This is not unusual. It is the rule. Some of the stars you see with your naked eye are dozens, hundreds, or even thousands of light years away. Their light might have left when your ancestors were carving stories into cave walls. Some left when mammals were still crawling out of the trees. Some left when no humans existed at all. And yet here they are, flickering softly above you as if nothing has changed. It's not because the stars are slow, it's because light, for all its speed, still takes time, and space is unimaginably wide. So when you look up, you are not seeing now. You are seeing a sky of messages in bottles, each one launched across a dark ocean of time. Some arrive decades late. Others take 1 billion years to land on your shore, and when they do, you mistake them for presence. You mistake them for reality. This is where the universe begins to play tricks, because nothing up there is quite where it seems. That star might be long gone. That galaxy might have merged, exploded, or faded out. But its light hasn't gotten the memo yet. It's still on its way, still painting its version of the truth across your sky. There's a kind of sadness in that. You're not witnessing the universe as it is. You're witnessing the version it once was. You're always behind, always late to the scene, always watching the highlight reel of a party that ended long ago. But maybe there's beauty in that too, because it means the past never really disappears. It echoes, it travels, it clings to photons and moves forward, always forward, until someone like you happens to look up and catch it in your eyes. Light is a kind of memory, a faithful one, but a delayed one. It doesn't forget, it just takes its time to arrive. And when it does, it doesn't knock. It slips in quietly, brushing past satellites, clouds, and glass, until it reaches the back of your retina. Your brain doesn't question it. It builds an image. It builds a night. It tells you this is real. But what if none of it is real? What if it's all already over? The Andromeda Galaxy, the nearest large galaxy to us, is 2.5 million light-years away. The light from Andromeda that reaches your eyes tonight left when early humans were first learning how to make fire. Every star you see inside that faint blur has moved, burned, died, or collided in some new configuration. You will never see the real Andromeda. You will only see its ancient broadcast. This is not science fiction. This is the basic reality of light in a vacuum. You are the final stop in an ancient transmission, a receiver of very old news, a pair of eyes at the end of a very long hallway. And the hallway is growing. The universe is expanding. Space itself is stretching like dough in a cosmic oven. That means some galaxies are moving away from you faster than the speed of light. Not because they are flying through space, but because space itself is growing between you and them. Their light will never reach you. Their story will never be told. Their goodbye was silent and final and already happened. So what you see when you look up is a filtered version of reality. Some stars made it in time, others didn't. Some are on their way, still traveling, still shouting into the dark. And some are lost forever, erased not by violence but by distance. It's strange to think about, isn't it? That you can't ever really know the universe as it is, only as it was. But maybe that's the only way to know anything. Through memory, through delay, through light that took its time. You are not outside of this phenomenon. You are inside it. Your body, your skin, your cells, they all emit and absorb light. When someone sees you, they are seeing the version of you reflected in the light that bounced off your body and into their eyes. Not the current you, but the recently broadcasted you, the fraction of a second ago you, the memory version. Nothing is instant, not even vision, not even thought, not even starlight. So the next time you go outside and stare into the night, try not to see it as a window. Try to see it as a library, a museum, a vault of frozen moments still glowing, still waiting for someone like you to notice them before they fade completely. The stars you see might already be gone, but they still wanted you to see them. You stare at a galaxy through a telescope and feel a quiet thrill. There it is, a swirl of light and dust, a trillion suns dancing in slow motion, a cosmic pinwheel, frozen across unimaginable distances. It looks serene, beautiful, still, but it sits lying to you. That's not what the galaxy looks like now. That's what it looked like millions or billions of years ago. You're not seeing the galaxy as it is. You're seeing it as it was. The farther the galaxy, the older the lie. And galaxies are good at lying, not maliciously, but by design. By distance, by physics. You think you're catching them in real time, but they're showing you a slideshow of old versions of themselves, like a photo album made entirely of delays. That galaxy you admired tonight might have collided with another galaxy eons ago. Its stars may have scattered, its core may have gone quiet, but you'll keep seeing its glowing spiral for a few million more years, unaware of the chaos that already happened. Even the shapes deceive you. Galaxies spin, they evolve, they stretch, crash, devour, and erupt, but you won't see any of that movement. Not in a night, not in a lifetime. Their grandest dramas unfold in silence and slowness. You stare, and you see structure, but what you're seeing is just one still frame from a film you'll never get to watch. A fossilized moment, a carefully lit illusion, an echo caught mid-flight. Now think about this. The most distant galaxies we can observe are over 13 billion light-years away. Their light left when the universe was young and full of fire. Some of them no longer exist. Others were never galaxies in the way we now understand them. They were clusters of hydrogen just figuring out how to become stars. And yet we label them. We chart them. We build maps from their light, assuming we know something about where they are. But the map is not the territory. It's a history book dressed as a photograph, a cosmic census where every name is outdated before the ink dries. Some of the galaxies we see are already gone. Others are somewhere else. Their light hasn't updated us yet. You live in a universe where all of your information is stale. All of your evidence is expired. And here's the really strange part. You're okay with it. You find comfort in these old lights. You organize your understanding of the cosmos around them. You draw meaning from their shapes, their positions, their colors. You let them tell you about the birth of time, the fate of matter, the edge of everything, even though none of them are still what they were. Imagine if you lived your whole life seeing people only as they were decades ago. If every photo, every mirror, every memory showed you a version of someone long gone, and never the version they became. That's what looking at galaxies is like. You love their beauty. You praise their symmetry. But you're admiring a version that no longer exists. And maybe that's the paradox of wonder. You fall in love with illusions, with approximations, with lies that are too slow to correct themselves. Yet somehow that doesn't make the experience any less real. It makes it more human, because you too are a delayed image. You too are seen through light that bounced and scattered and took time to travel. The real you is never fully seen, only the version that made it through the atmosphere. So maybe the galaxies aren't still lying to you. Maybe they are doing what you do, sending out light, hoping someone sees it, hoping it reaches far enough to be remembered. You live in a universe built on delay. Everything you know about the stars, the galaxies, the edge of space, it's all based on light that took its time. You're a collector of ancient signals, a curator of vanished truths, a witness to what was, not what is. And that doesn't make the universe less beautiful. It makes it a cathedral of memory. Each galaxy a stained glass window of light that traveled for eons. Each observation a moment of quiet communion with something impossibly old. You are not seeing galaxies. You are seeing their goodbye. There's a strange kind of beauty in watching a star die. A supernova, the grand finale of a massive star's life, explodes with more energy in a moment than our sun will emit in its entire 10 billion year lifespan. It's violent, magnificent, blinding. But here sits the trick. You're not seeing the explosion when it happens. You're seeing it when the light finally arrives. And sometimes, the wait is absurd. That brilliant burst you glimpse through a telescope might have happened 10,000 years ago, maybe 50,000, maybe more. The star died in silence, far away, and its death certificate is only now reaching your eyes, long after the corpse has cooled into something else. You're not watching a death. You're watching a recording of a death. In fact, the star that exploded might have been visible in your sky for thousands of years before the light from its final breath even made it to Earth. You might have watched it glow steadily as if nothing was wrong, all while its core had already collapsed, its outer layers already hurled into the void. You were watching the past pretending to be the present. This isn't set rare. This is how space works. Take SN 1987A, one of the closest and most studied supernovae in recent memory. It exploded in the Large Magellanic Cloud, a satellite galaxy of our Milky Way, about 168,000 light-years away. That means the explosion occurred 168,000 years before we saw it, before the first cave paintings, before Homo sapiens even migrated into Europe. The light from that stellar death had been on the road since before your species had a name. When it finally arrived in 1987, astronomers celebrated. They scrambled for telescopes. They recorded the shock wave, the neutrinos, the expanding cloud of debris. But what they were documenting was already ancient history. And this is the rule, not the exception. Every time you see a supernova, you're seeing a moment that no longer exists. It's a rewind, a final flare-up captured in slow delivery. And by the time you understand what happened, the universe has already moved on. But isn't that always the way with grief? You don't know what's been lost until it's too late to change anything. You find out in fragments, in echoes, in flickers of brightness that were never meant for you. Even the sun will do this one day. Not soon, not for billions of years, but one day its slow, stable glow will give way to something more dramatic. It won't go supernova, it's too small, but it will swell into a red giant, consume Mercury and Venus, possibly scorch Earth to a husk, then shed its outer layers into space. What remains will be a white dwarf, small, dense, and glowing like an ember. And when that happens, some distant creature might look up at our solar system, or where it used to be, and see a sudden change in the sky, a new wisp of glowing gas, a light that wasn't there before. They one set know what it means. They shall study it, measure it, name it, but they won't be watching Earth's final day. They'll be watching the delayed transmission of something long buried. Maybe humanity will already be gone. Maybe we'll have become something else. Or maybe we'll still be sending out our own slow lights, hoping someone sees us in time. It's unsettling to realize that nothing in the cosmos is happening for your benefit. You are always arriving late, always seeing the end after the ending. And yet, the fact that the light made it at all is something worth honoring. That ancient supernova didn't choose you. It didn't aim its light at your little planet, but somehow it reached you, through dust and distance, through expansion and entropy, through the randomness of galactic drift. It arrived, and you noticed. There is something sacred in that. Not because you're special, but because you're paying attention to something that had no reason to be remembered. So when you see the next bright flare in the night sky, remember, you're not just witnessing light, you're witnessing survival, a moment that refused to disappear quietly, a death so massive that its brightness outlived the star itself. And somehow, against all odds, it reached your tiny corner of the galaxy, just in time to remind you that even endings have a way of echoing. Even destruction can linger as light. Even things that are gone can still be seen. When you look into a mirror, you see yourself, or so you think, but technically what you see is light that left your face, bounced off the mirror, and returned to your eyes. That light took time to travel, even if only a few nanoseconds, which means the reflection is delayed, imperceptibly, yes, but still delayed. Now stretch that mirror across the universe. Every time you look into the night sky, you're seeing reflections of ancient moments, light that bounced and scattered across space, collecting stories, picking up speed, slowing through gravity, warping through curvature. You're not just observing, you're gazing into a time machine that only moves one way. The farther the object, the older its image. Look at the moon and you're seeing it 1.3 seconds ago. Look at the sun and you're seeing it 8 minutes ago. Look at Sirius, the brightest star in our night sky, and you're seeing it as it was 8.6 years ago. So it's the uncomfortable truth. Everything you see in the sky, every shimmer, twinkle, or glow is a delayed image, a reflection of how things used to be. The stars don't show you now, they show you then. You are constantly seeing the past, and the universe doesn't set update. There is no cosmic refresh button, no real-time footage of galactic life. All you have is what the photons bring. Old light, ancient messages, some from long-dead stars, some from galaxies that no longer exist, some from objects so far away, their present will never reach you at all. But you still trust what you see. That tiny glow in the telescope? You believe it's there. Even if the star died 1,000,000 years ago, you build stories around it. You name it. You fold it into maps and myths, but it could already be gone, and you wouldn't know for 1,000,000 more years. It's not just an illusion, it's a dependency. You have no other way to see the universe except through these long, delayed signals. You're watching a reality that's always out of sync, and strangely it begins to mirror how you live. Because even here on Earth, your understanding of the present is never instantaneous. Your brain takes time to process signals. Your thoughts arrive in delay. Your memories blur into perception. You think you're living in the now, but you're not. You're living a few milliseconds behind, always just a breath late, always reacting to what already happened. In space, that delay stretches. It becomes years, decades, eons, and the farther you look, the more distant your sense of truth becomes. The universe holds a mirror up to you, and in it you see time slipping, not as something flowing like water, but something fractured, staggered, filtered through distances so vast that the present becomes unreachable. Then, this isn't set, just science. It sets philosophy. It asks you what it means to see, to know, to trust your eyes in a place where even light tells lies of omission. And yet, you keep looking, because there's something sacred in the act of watching what is no longer there, something honest in the quiet acceptance that beauty can still exist in a reflection, even if the original is gone. You treat the sky like a map, but it's more like a graveyard of memories, still glowing, and like all graveyards, it's not about the bodies, it's about what they meant, what they left behind, what stories they still tell in the right kind of light. And maybe that sep's enough. Maybe you don't need real-time truth. Maybe you just need light that's bright enough to find you. Because in the dark, with the stars overhead, you are not lost. You are surrounded by echoes. You are wrapped in reflections. You are watching the past and learning how to live with it. There's a star in the sky that doesn't exist anymore. You can see it with your eyes. You can point to it. You can photograph it. You can even name it. But it sits gone. Its light is still traveling, still flooding through space like a faithful messenger that didn't hear the sender's final breath. And because of that, the star lives on in your sky, glowing with all the arrogance of a thing that believes it still exists. And you believe it too. You have no reason not to. It's right there, steady, bright, reliable, but it's a ghost, a light echo from a death you'll never witness, a performance with no actor left behind the curtain. This isn't hypothetical. It's not metaphor. It's real. There are stars right now, visible to the naked eye, that have already ended. They've collapsed into neutron stars, or black holes, or scattered themselves across the cosmos in clouds of dust and gas. But they're still up there shining, because their light is still catching up to you. And this raises a question you can ignore. What else do you believe in just because the light hasn't run out? How many truths do you hold on to out of habit, out of familiarity, not because they still exist, but because the signal hasn't faded yet? That star, the one that doesn't exist anymore, it taught you something quietly devastating. That visibility is not the same as existence. That light can be a lie, not an intentional one, but a lie of timing. You begin to realize that nothing is what it seems, not in space, not in time, not even in yourself. Because if a star can be gone and still shine, can't you? Can you be burning out and still appear fine? Can't you be collapsing inward and still reflect enough brightness to be believed? The universe is full of vanished things still pretending to be present. You are one of them. Sometimes the world only sees your light, not your truth. Sometimes people admire your glow without asking what it cost you to keep shining. And yet, you keep doing it. Just like the star. There's a paradox here. A cruel one. The more distant and ancient the light, the more beautiful it becomes. We romanticize the dying star. We celebrate the old light. We gather around telescopes to marvel at a thing that isn't even there anymore. Maybe that sip's not tragic. Maybe that sip's grace. Maybe there's something noble in letting your light keep traveling, in being remembered for how you shone, even if no one ever saw how you ended. But it does make you wonder, how many of the stars you see are real? How many are still burning? How many are just leftover signals, glowing tapestries woven from ancient deaths? Astronomers estimate that a small percentage of stars visible to the naked eye are already gone. Not many, but some, enough to remind you that the night sky is not a live feed, it's a delay, a lagging transmission from a universe that changes faster than your perception can follow. So when you look up tonight and choose a star to focus on, know this: you might be watching a memory. You might be admiring something that had the courtesy to shine long enough for you to notice it. And even if it's gone, even if its atoms are scattered across the void, its light is still doing its job, reaching you, touching you, proving that something once burned bright enough to travel across time. You don't need to see the collapse to understand the wonder. Sometimes it sits enough to see the glow. You've been told that time flows, like a river, like a sequence, one moment giving birth to the next in orderly procession. But space doesn't agree with that metaphor. Out here, time doesn't flow. It fragments. Time becomes strange in space, not just stretched, broken. You see a galaxy a billion light years away, and think of it as part of your now, but it's not. Its now is not your now. That galaxy is living in a past you cannot correct. The moment you observe it, you're digging into a layer of history preserved only by the loyalty of light. And if that weren't enough, time itself ticks differently across the universe. The deeper you fall into gravity, near stars, planets, black holes, the slower your time runs, not as an illusion, as a fact. Clocks run differently at sea level than they do at mountain tops. Satellites in orbit have to constantly adjust their internal clocks to stay in sync with the ones on Earth. The universe refuses to keep a single beat. It stretches, pulls, twists time according to mass and speed. And you, sitting calmly on your little world, are swimming through a current that bends in ways you can't feel. This is not the poetic time of calendars and seasons. This is Einstein's time, relative, warped, unwilling to obey your expectations. You are made of time that doesn't set match itself. That galaxy you're observing, it has its own ticking, its own rhythm, its own unfolding, but you'll never know what it's doing right now, in its actual present, because its present is forever inaccessible to you. The light has to travel, and while it does, time moves on, both there and here, in incompatible ways. You might be looking at a galaxy that has already transformed, already burned through its stars, already collided with another and birthed something unrecognizable, but its light hasn't told you that yet. You're still locked in an outdated report, and the report never updates. Even more unsettling, your now isn't even fully yours. You experience it locally, personally, but on cosmic scales, the very concept of a universal now doesn't exist. Ask two people in different parts of the universe to define the present, and they won't agree. Their clocks won't match. Their distances distort everything. Even their sense of simultaneity falls apart. What is now to one might be the past to another, or the future. There is no cosmic present. There is only the illusion of one, patched together by light, and you trust that illusion every night. You watch the stars and feel comfort in their stillness. You tell yourself that some things endure, but they don't. They only appear to endure because the messages from their changes haven't arrived yet. Your entire vision of the universe is a stitched-up montage of mismatched moments. A star from 10 years ago, a galaxy from a billion, a cluster from the edge of time, and you, right here, right now, pretending it all belongs to the same moment. But maybe that sip's not something to mourn. Maybe that sip's the gift. You're not watching a stream, you're wandering a museum. Every object in the sky is a preserved exhibit, a fossil of light, a moment that got caught in the act of existing and decided to keep traveling. You sit not seeing a universe that flows. You sit seeing a universe that remembers, and perhaps the only real present is the one you create by looking. You think the sky is full of stars, and it is, but mostly it's full of darkness. You look up and see pinpricks of light, scattered like embers across a vast black canvas. But that canvas isn't empty. It isn't nothing. It's a silence full of missing signals, a void not of absence but of delay. The darkness between stars is not blank space. It is information that has not yet arrived, or information that never will. Some of it is waiting, light from distant galaxies that is still on its way. Some of it has already passed, swept beyond your reach before you were ever here to look. And some, maybe most, is simply unreachable, so far, so stretched by the expansion of space that its light will never find you. That kind of darkness isn't set empty. It sets censorship. The universe keeps secrets, and it keeps them in the dark. You assume that with better telescopes, better math, better maps, you'll someday see it all, but physics disagrees. There's a hard edge to what you can see, called the observable universe. It's not a limit of imagination, it's a limit of light. Beyond it, space is still out there. More galaxies, more stars, more things that existed, but they are invisible, not because you lack the tools, but because light itself has not had enough time, and in some cases never will. Those places are beyond your cosmic horizon, and the darkness between stars. That's the beginning of that boundary. You stare into it every night, without realizing it, that quiet between the glimmers, that stillness that makes the stars seem so profound. That's the universe saying, I'm not done, but I won't let you in. And yet that darkness is part of what makes the stars beautiful, because they are framed by absence, made sacred by contrast. If the sky were glowing evenly in every direction, the stars would vanish in the wash. You'd never see the sharpness of Sirius, never trace the arcs of Orion, never feel the ancient awe of a clear, moonless night. It's the darkness that gives you perspective, that reminds you how rare visibility really is, how precious it is when light actually arrives. So every time you look between the stars, don't think of it as nothing. Think of it as waiting. There's a galaxy whose light will reach us in 1 billion years, a star whose death flare is still mid-journey, a burst of colour so faint and ancient it will only be caught by some future descendant of your telescopes, long after you're gone. The darkness holds their promise, but it also holds your limit. No matter how smart you become, how far you reach, how clever your machines grow, the universe still says no. Not here. Not this. Not yet. And so the sky remains mostly dark, but not because it's empty, because it sets fast, because it suts slow, because you are small. And maybe that's not such a terrible thing. Maybe the darkness between is what gives your search meaning. You are not meant to see it all, only to see enough. Enough to wonder, enough to ask questions, enough to stare into the black and know it's more than a backdrop. It sacks the stage. The silence before the song, the pause that makes the melody. So don't be afraid of the darkness between. It's not hiding from you. It's just not finished yet. You're not just looking at the past, you're watching it move. That's the unsettling part. Not that the stars are old or distant or dead, but that the stories are still unfolding in front of you, as if they're happening now, even though they already happened, even though the universe moved on. You watch a star brighten in the night sky and call it a supernova, but the explosion happened thousands of years ago. You see a galaxy stretched into a ribbon and call it gravitational lensing, but the warping event may be long over. The lens could be gone, the path distorted, the players vanished, and yet the performance continues because the light hasn't caught up with the truth. You aren't set observing events. You set observing recordings, but they're not static. They're alive, moving, changing, updating, just not quickly enough for the changes to be real. You are seeing motion that has already ended, light waves still delivering the drama, like film reels projected long after the camera stopped rolling. It feels like you saw part of it, but you fur not. You're not watching the universe now. You're watching its memories slowly unwrap themselves across your sky. Every telescope is a time machine. Every star a letter from the past. And you, sitting here on Earth, are the quiet reader, too late to change anything, too early to see the next part. This is what makes astronomy so strange. You discover things after they've already happened. You confirm explosions, mergers, and deaths that occurred when your ancestors were still building fires and naming rivers. And yet, it feels urgent, immediate, as if the stars are speaking to you in the moment. But they sit and not. They already spoke. You sit just hearing the echo. Even cosmic events that seem fast, gamma-ray bursts, star collapses, black hole collisions, they only seem fast when the light reaches you. But the event itself is ancient, and by the time you've noticed, measured, studied, and named it, it's nothing but history. It's like watching news footage of an event that happened decades ago, but reacting to it as if it were breaking news. This doesn't mean it sits meaningless. Far from it. It means you live in a layered reality, a place where time is sliced into incoming signals, and your perception is shaped by what has arrived, not what is. You think you know what's happening now, but you only know what's been revealed. You think you understand the timeline, but the timeline is scattered, warped, stitched together by the sequence in which photons choose to arrive. Even on Earth, your experiences never truly live. Signals delay. Neurons lag. Thoughts form slower than light. But in space, the scale makes it visible. It makes it undeniable. You are always behind. Always catching up. Always responding to a universe that already made its move. But still, you find wonder in it. You learn to watch the past with reverence. You learn to read the sky like an old letter, carefully unfolding each crease, each sentence, each smudge of light. You become a student of delay, an interpreter of ancient brightness. And maybe that sip's enough. Maybe you don't need to see the universe as it is. Maybe it's better this way, to see the echoes, the aftermaths, the soft unraveling of things that once were. Because in doing so, you learn something about yourself. You too are built from memories, from events long past, from signals you didn't ask for but received anyway. Your body is made of recycled starlight. Your thoughts are echoes of older thoughts. Your every choice is shaped by moments you didn't control. And yet, you move forward. Just like the light. You carry the past, but you keep traveling. You look up, point at a star, and draw a line. Maybe it's part of a constellation. Maybe it reminds you of a story. Maybe it's just beautiful. But the star is not where you think it is. Not anymore. The light you see took years, decades, or even millennia to reach your eyes. And in that time, the star has moved, drifted, shifted in ways you can't detect from here. You're not seeing it as it is. You're seeing it as it was, in a location it no longer occupies. That sets the strange truth. The night sky is a forgery. Not maliciously so, just by consequence. The stars have been in motion this whole time. They orbit galactic centers. They sway in gravitational tides. Some wobble in binary dances. Others are flung across the galaxy by unseen collisions. Their paths are real. Their speeds are constant. But your map is based on where they used to be. This is why navigation by starlight, once the domain of sailors and explorers, must be corrected by math. Because the sky lies gently, casually, elegantly. The Big Dipper still looks like a spoon, but the stars that make it are scattered across different depths of space, moving at different speeds. It's a trick of alignment, a visual illusion maintained by old light arriving in unison. If you could pause time and teleport to those stars, you'd find they no longer form any recognizable shape. They've moved on. The constellation dissolved. The stories vanished. The pattern was never real to begin with, just a coincidence of perspective and delay. The stars are not where you think, and the shapes you see are not truths. They are stories you projected onto a backdrop of moving targets. You made meaning out of a lie. And that's what humans do best. There's no shame in that. You needed patterns, so you connected the dots. You needed direction, so you trusted their positions. You needed wonder, so you believed in what you saw, even when what you saw was already outdated. And somehow it worked. But in space, accuracy requires letting go of comfort. It means embracing that your intuitive map of the stars is a museum of misplaced locations. Astronomers account for this drift. It's called proper motion. They track how stars shift over years and decades, sometimes noticing dramatic changes, other times barely a twitch. But over centuries, the shapes change. The sky transforms, and the constellations you know will eventually become unrecognizable. Future skies will hold different stories, different shapes, different lies. Even Polaris, the North Star, won't stay the North Star. Earth's axis wobbles like a slow top, tracing a circle in the sky every 26,000 years. In ancient times, the North Star was Thuban. In the future, it will be Vega. Your cosmic compass is temporary. So what do you do with this knowledge? What do you do when the map is made of ghosts? You do what you have always done. You look up anyway. You accept the imperfection. You admire the glow, knowing it's out of place. You trace the old lines and let them anchor you, even if the anchors have drifted. Because the sky doesn't have to be current to be meaningful. It only has to be present. And presence in a universe built on delay is more about arrival than accuracy. The stars you see are not where they seem to be, but their light found you, and that's enough. They showed up. So you can too. There sips a quiet horror hidden in the night sky. Not the kind made of monsters or fear, a slower kind, a cosmic realization that creeps in the longer you stare. It starts with a question that you didn't mean to ask. What if I'm watching a planet that no longer exists? Not a star, a planet, a world, a place that might have had oceans, winds, rain, maybe even life. Something teeming, something delicate. And now, gone. And you sit. Never know. Because the light is still coming. A star explodes, and eventually you see it. A galaxy distorts, and you spot the stretch. But a planet, a single planet, circling its quiet sun, hundreds or thousands of light years away, it disappears without fanfare. No supernova, no dramatic flare, just silence. And yet the starlight continues. And within that starlight are clues, tiny dips in brightness, subtle wobbles, infrared signatures. These are the fingerprints of exoplanets, worlds you've never seen but which betray their presence through shadows and sway. You build models, you calculate atmospheres, you imagine surfaces, you give them names like Kepler 22b, TRAPPIST-1e or Gliese 581g. Some you call potentially habitable, Earth-like, Goldilocks planets. But what if they gone? What if the atmosphere burned away in a stellar tantrum 1,000 years ago? What if a rogue asteroid shattered the surface? What if something beautiful bloomed there, once and vanished in silence, and you're still catching its reflected light, none the wiser? There sits no emergency alarm for vanished planets. No breaking news when a distant ocean boils off. No obituary when a biosphere collapses. The photons don't scream, they just keep going, and you, sitting in a chair on a spinning rock, keep receiving their polite lies. Even the planet you're on right now, Earth, could become such a ghost someday, a civilization wiped clean, a blue marble turned grey, and the light, the radio waves, the infrared whispers, they'd all keep travelling, past stars, past galaxies, through the void, until someone else looks up far away and catches your echo. They call it promising, they call it alive, and they be wrong, or they be late. Maybe they send a signal, maybe they build a probe, Maybe by the time it arrived, Earth would be nothing but a frozen monument to a species that looked up too late. And you wonder, how many civilizations have you missed? How many signals arrived before you were here to receive them? How many messages passed through this part of the galaxy while your ancestors were still hunting mammoths? The sky is not empty. It is saturated with timing problems. And the saddest ones are the lights that tell you a world might be there when it no longer is. You search for biosignatures, oxygen, methane, strange chemistry that shouldn't exist without life. And when you find them, you feel hope. But that hope is always bent by the speed of light. What you call a possibility is always at best an ancient maybe. The stars once sit correct you. They don't tell you what they sieve lost. They just keep broadcasting, and your heart fills in the blanks. Because you want to believe. You want to believe that something is out there, right now, alive and looking back, not just in the past, not just in theory, but presently breathing, thinking, watching, wondering. But maybe the connection will always be out of sync. Maybe the best you will get is ghost light, not from stars, but from homes, from places that once cradled stories, dreams, civilizations, and which now shine only because no one told the light to stop. It's a strange kind of intimacy, to receive light from something that's already gone. You become its last audience, its last witness, its final echo, and maybe that sip's enough. Because even if you never touch it, never reach it, never hear its voice, you caught its glow, you noticed it in the dark, you imagined what it could have been, and maybe that's the only afterlife a planet ever gets. So tonight, when you stare into the black between stars, remember this. You might be seeing homes that are no longer there. You might be admiring ruins that still shine. You might be dreaming about life that already finished dreaming. But that doesn't make the dream any less real. It just makes you part of its final chapter. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine this. You vanish. Not in pain, not in fear, just gone, quietly, without a ripple, no final message, no record, no remnant. You blink out of existence, and the universe doesn't even notice. The earth keeps spinning, the moon keeps pulling at tides, and the stars, the ones you watched your whole life, keep shining, unchanged. The universe doesn't pause to mourn you. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't weep. It doesn't even adjust the brightness. Light continues to travel at the same relentless speed, indifferent to your absence. It sups a humbling thought. Because for all the beauty you see in the stars, they do not see you. For all the wonder you feel, none is returned. The cosmos does not care that you were here, and yet, somehow, you care that it is. You, this soft, momentary creature on a dust-sized planet in a barely noticeable corner of a galaxy, look up at the night sky and feel something. Connection, longing, maybe even meaning. But that meaning is not written into the stars. You wrote it, and you keep writing it. Even though the stars are ancient and most of their stories are finished, you still look at them and make something new out of their light. You tell stories, you draw lines, you build telescopes and cities just to see a little farther. You send out signals hoping someone might reply, even if they're a million years too late. You do this not because you are part of the universe's plan, but because you refuse not to be. The universe without you is vast and cold and ongoing. But with you, even just for this moment, it has a witness. It has someone to feel the weight of starlight, someone to wonder why time bends and light delays, someone to ask questions that don't need answers to matter. And maybe that's what makes your presence meaningful. Not permanence, but perception. You were here, you noticed. And that makes the stars different, even if only briefly. You might think of yourself as small, and you are. The universe is nearly 14 billion years old. It's filled with hundreds of billions of galaxies, each with billions of stars, each surrounded by planets you'll never see. Compared to that, your lifetime is a spark, a flicker, a barely audible note in an infinite song. But you're the only part of that universe that can wonder about itself. A black hole doesn't sit to question why it exists. A galaxy doesn't sit to ask what time it is. But you do. You are the mirror held up to the cosmos, and for a sliver of time, the universe becomes self-aware through you. That awareness won't last forever. You'll be gone one day. The neurons will go quiet. The breath will stop, and your eyes, which once held the entire night sky, will close. But that doesn't mean you didn't matter, because while you were here, you translated light into meaning. That is a kind of alchemy no star can perform. The stars will keep burning long after you're gone. Some will die. Others will be born. Entire galaxies will rise and vanish before your name is spoken again, if it ever is. And yet, for now, you are real, you are present, and you are watching. That watching, that gentle act of witnessing the cosmos, is not passive. It sits sacred. It stops rare. It's the universe folding inward, just long enough to ask itself, what am I? And even if it forgets the answer, the question matters. Because in the end, the universe without you is still impressive, but it is less felt, less seen, less known. A room full of art without a single pair of eyes. So don't underestimate what it means to be the observer, to be the one who looks, even when the stars are gone. To listen, even when the silence has stretched for eons. To care, even when the answers never arrive. You are not separate from the universe. You are the part that asks why, the part that watches the stars and wonders if they're still there, the part that sees ghost light from dead worlds and imagines who lived there, who loved there, who once looked up at their own night sky and asked the same questions you're asking now. Maybe someone once looked up from a distant world and saw the faint glow of your sun. Maybe they wondered what kind of creatures might live around such a star. Maybe they died before you ever evolved. Maybe their world is gone, and their light is only just now arriving at your edge of the sky. You shall never know. But the fact that you thought to ask, that's enough. That is the miracle. Not that the stars shine, but that you noticed, that you stared into an indifferent void and chose to care anyway. So no, the universe doesn't stenade you, but maybe that's what makes your presence matter even more. You don't just have to be necessary to be meaningful. You don't have to be remembered to have witnessed. You were here. You saw, and that light, yours, will echo too. There is light moving through the universe right now that will never reach you. Not because it missed you, not because you weren't paying attention, but because it can't. Because space is expanding faster than the light can travel. Because distance out here can grow faster than any signal can close the gap. You live inside a cosmic horizon, a boundary beyond which no new light will ever arrive. A limit not of imagination, but of physics. A place where the sky becomes a silent archive, sealed off by time and velocity. You think of light as fast, and it is 300,000 kilometers per second, but even that isn't fast enough. Not here, not anymore, because space itself is stretching, not the objects within it, the space between those objects. And when the expansion outpaces the light trying to cross it, the message never arrives. There are galaxies whose light left billions of years ago, still traveling, still trying to find you, but they will never make it. Not because they stopped shining, but because the road between you and them grew too long, too fast. The path outpaced the photon. It sets a haunting concept, not that the light is gone, but that it sits still coming and always will be, chasing a finish line that keeps moving. That's the nature of a dark energy-driven universe. The further a galaxy is, the faster it appears to move away from you. Not because it's flying through space like a rocket, but because the fabric of the universe is expanding beneath it. And eventually, the expansion wins. It stretches space faster than any particle can fight. The result? a horizon. Not an edge. There is no edge, but a limit. A sphere of observability. Everything beyond it is lost to you forever. Not hidden, but unreachable. You can never know what happens out there. You can never see how those galaxies evolve, or end, or transform. You will never know their fate, no matter how long you wait, no matter how powerful your telescope. Their light is lost to you. Still traveling, still shining, still trying, and failing, because the universe doesn't promise completion. It doesn't guarantee arrival. It just lets the light try, and sometimes that's not enough. And here's the part that twists the knife. That boundary isn't set fixed. As time moves forward, more galaxies slip past it. More regions of the cosmos drift into that unreachable zone. Every second, your universe becomes a little more isolated, a little lonelier, a little more cut off from the totality it once contained. Eventually, the only galaxies still visible will be the ones gravitationally bound to yours, the ones close enough to fight the expansion with their own mass. Everything else? Faded, gone, not erased, just permanently late. And what does that do to your sense of reality? To know that the vast majority of the universe is already beyond your ability to observe? To know that you're surrounded by light you'll never see? It sits enough to make you feel small, but maybe, just maybe, it's also enough to make you feel something more than small, something rare, something precise. Because for a brief window of cosmic time right now, you exist in the golden age of visibility. You're living in a moment when the sky still speaks. When galaxies from the early universe still send their signals, when the echoes of the Big Bang still hum through the radio sky. You are here during the chapter when the universe is still transparent enough to read, and that is not permanent. There will come a time, billions of years from now, when the sky goes dark, when future beings, if they exist, will look up and see only the local group, a few dim stars, no galaxies, no cosmic microwave background, no hints of expansion, no clues. To them, the universe will seem small, static, eternal. They will have no evidence that anything else ever existed. And yet, you here, now, can see the whole script. You can read the margins. You can trace the starlight from galaxies that exploded before Earth had oceans. You can hear the static hiss of the birth of time. You can know the shape of the cosmos, not from faith, but from photons. So don't take that for granted. Don't assume that the light will always be there. It septs moving. It sex escaping. It's slipping beyond your grasp with every passing second. You are not just a witness to light. You are its last recipient. The end of a long chain of arrival that began when the universe was fire and noise. You are the final stop for light that tried for billions of years to reach you. And now, it ends with your eyes, with your attention, with your moment of quiet awe. So when you look up tonight, remember much of the light is already gone, and much of it will never arrive. But the part you can see, the part that made it, is a miracle. Not because it sits bright, but because it sits here, with you. Now, you carry a quiet assumption in your mind that time passes the same way for everyone, everywhere. A second is a second. An hour is an hour. The stars twinkle above you, and you imagine their clocks ticking in harmony with your own. But they don't sit. Time is not a universal rhythm. It bends, it stretches, it slows down and speeds up, depending on where you are, how fast you're moving, and how deep you sit in a well of gravity. And out there, beyond your atmosphere, time becomes an instrument played by forces you can barely feel. Picture a black hole, a collapsed star so dense that even light cannot escape it. At the edge of its event horizon, time itself begins to stretch. If you hovered just outside that invisible boundary, seconds would pass for you. but years would slip by for someone watching from afar. From their perspective, you would seem to freeze in place, suspended, slowed, caught in a forever that never arrives. This isn't science fiction, it's general relativity. It's tested, proven. The clocks tick differently in strong gravity. Even near Earth, this effect exists. Your feet experience time differently than your head, ever so slightly. Your GPS satellites orbiting above must constantly adjust their clocks to match the passage of time on Earth's surface, or else their calculations would drift, and your navigation systems would fail. Time does not flow evenly. It is warped by presence, mass, energy, curvature, and nowhere is this more dramatic than in space. Imagine two twins. One stays on Earth, the other boards a spacecraft, accelerates to near the speed of light, explores a distant star system, and returns. When they reunite, one is old, the other is barely changed. Time for the traveler passed more slowly. This is not a paradox, it is reality. You live in a universe where clocks disagree, not because they're broken, but because time itself is flexible. And once you understand this, everything about space becomes stranger, more beautiful, more haunting, because it means that light from distant galaxies carries more than images. It carries time itself. That ancient spiral galaxy you're observing? It's light left when the universe was young, when its own stars ticked in rhythms long erased. And yet some of those rhythms are still encoded in the light that reaches you. Spectral shifts, reddening curves, dimmed frequencies stretched by expansion. You stir not just seeing far. You stir seeing time smeared across distance. You're looking at the history of timekeeping itself. And it's not just the past you're seeing, it's the rate of the past. How fast things moved, how long stars burned, how gravity shaped their rhythms. Time has no fixed speed. And so, the deeper you peer into space, the more distorted your view of time becomes. What looks slow may have been fast. What looks constant may have been unstable. What looks still may have been in wild motion, but seen from a frame of reference that tricks your understanding. Even light is insect immune. As it crosses expanding space, its waves stretch. A photon that left a galaxy glowing blue may reach you in red, not because the galaxy changed color, but because the distance between you and that light grew while it was in transit. The light aged on the way. It's called redshift. And it's not just about color, it's sex about time travel through expansion. It's a record of slowness imposed by the growth of space. You are seeing not only old things, but old things stretched into new shapes. A slowed universe, a cooled one, a cosmos that is winding down in tempo, even as its fabric accelerates in size. You live in a universe where space grows and time bends. And here's the twist. Your own sense of time right now is local, personal, a private perception constructed by the laws of physics near your body. But your time is not the universe's time, and the universe doesn't set of just one. The concept of now begins to fall apart when stretched across billions of light years. Two distant galaxies might both exist in your night sky, but they don't share a moment. Their present is not your present. Their clocks don't match your rhythm. There is no universal now, only local nows, stitched together by photons, by arrivals, by the time it takes light to report back, which means you never truly see anything as it is, only as it was, filtered through distortions of space, gravity, and motion. So what do you do with that? How do you live in a world where time is this malleable? Maybe you learn to appreciate what time you do have. Your personal seconds, your private hours. Maybe you begin to realize how much of your identity, your memory, your hope, your meaning, is built on the assumption that time flows gently, evenly, fairly, and maybe, in understanding the truth, that time is a local illusion maintained by cosmic tricks. You learn to stop taking it for granted, because your time is real. Even if it's not absolute, even if it's warped and curved and destined to disagree with the clocks out there, your time still matters. It is the frame through which you look, the lens through which you wonder, and even if the stars are ticking differently, even if their minutes stretch into centuries, you still chose to spend yours looking up. That sips something. That sips everything. Long before Earth cooled, long before the stars formed, long before galaxies began their slow spiral dances, there was only light. A dense, searing fog of radiation and plasma, a universe without atoms, without structure, without silence, just brightness, just noise. Then everything cooled. Not fast, slowly, patiently. After nearly 380,000 years of boiling chaos, the temperature dropped just enough for the first atoms to form. Hydrogen, helium, simple things. And as they formed, the universe changed. It became transparent. For the first time, light was free. No longer trapped by constant collisions with electrons, no longer bounced and scattered in every direction. The photons could finally travel, unobstructed, uninterrupted. And so, they did. Those first freed photons have been traveling ever since. Some of them, impossibly, are still around, still moving, still stretching through space, still echoing. And you, here now, can hear them, not with your ears, but with your machines, your radio telescopes, your sensitive detectors cooled to near absolute zero. You hear them not as a sound, but as a faint static, a microwave whisper from the deep past. It's called the cosmic microwave background, the oldest light in the universe. It is the afterglow of the Big Bang. It's not a theory. It's not an artist's impression. It's real. It has been mapped, measured, detected in every direction as a soft, uniform hum across the sky, and it is everywhere. Not because it surrounds you, but because it is you, or rather, it's what's left from where you began. The universe is not silent. It carries its childhood in the form of cold light, light that has traveled for nearly 14 billion years. Not from stars, not from galaxies, but from the fabric of space itself, still warm from its birth. And yet, the strangest part, it sits still here, right now, all around you. If your TV ever lost signal in the old days and filled the screen with static, a small fraction of that noise, just a sliver, was this ancient light, background radiation from the dawn of everything, quietly sneaking into your living room. You live inside that echo, wrapped in a bubble of ancient brightness. It's not bright anymore, of course. That light has cooled, stretched, dimmed. The expansion of the universe has turned those high-energy photons into faint microwaves. What was once fire is now a whisper, but the whisper never stopped. It sips, still speaking, still saying, "I was here." That light is the universe SEP's memory, and it remembers everything. Not in detail, not in names or moments or tragedies, but in temperature, in density, in the subtle patterns of heat and cold that ripple through the cosmic background. Those ripples, those tiny fluctuations, are the fingerprints of the first structures, the seeds of galaxies, the clues to your origin. And they tell you something profound, that even in chaos, there was pattern. Even in the earliest moments, when time itself was young and everything burned, the universe had imperfections, little differences, slight variations in energy, and those imperfections became everything. Without them, there would be no stars, no planets, no you. You were born in a wrinkle, in a statistical twitch of early light. And somehow, against all odds, that light kept going, unblocked, uncorrupted, not absorbed, not lost, just continuing. It crossed space that grew 1,000 times wider. It slipped past forming galaxies. It drifted through dust, through collisions, through ages of expansion and acceleration. And eventually, it found your eyes, or rather, your instruments. Your clever arrangements of metal and silicon and patience. You built machines to see what your body never could. And they did. They looked into the void, and the void responded, not with silence, but with clarity. That ancient light showed you the shape of everything, the curvature of space, the fate of the cosmos, the density of matter, the symmetry of time. It answered questions you didn't know how to ask. It showed you that the universe had a beginning, that it had a story, that it was not infinite in age, but finite, fragile, and changing. The first light still glows, not with heat, but with memory. And maybe that sips what matters most. Not how bright it was, but that it kept going. You and that light, you have something in common. You both came from nothing. You both traveled through difficulty. You both survived unimaginable distances. And you both carry stories the rest of the universe forgot. So tonight, when you look up, remember there's more than stars in the sky, more than planets, more than galaxies. There is light older than time as you understand it. Still here, still whispering, still finding its way home. You've spent so much time thinking about the stars that are already here. The ones that shine, the ones that exploded, the ones whose light lingers long after they've gone. But what about the stars that never arrived? The ones that almost formed and didn't sit? The ones that had all the ingredients, all the potential, all the conditions, but never ignited, never fused, never blazed their story into the dark. There are far more of these than you might imagine, because making a star is hard. You need clouds of gas, vast, cold, and dense. You need gravity to pull them together, slowly, steadily. You need time, silence. A quiet cosmic womb where pressure can build and ignite a nuclear fire that burns for billions of years. But space is not gentle. It interrupts. It tears clouds apart with radiation from nearby giants. It stirs them with supernova shockwaves. It scatters them with turbulence and motion. Many clouds collapse halfway, then stall, or disperse, or become something else. Brown dwarfs, rogue planets, cold emptiness, failed stars. They are everywhere. Between the great constellations, between the dazzling spiral arms of galaxies, lie the dark regions where things almost happened. A near star, a nearly shining sun, a sky full of what could have been. You don't see them, but they set there. Masses just below the threshold. Objects too big to be planets, too small to be stars. They hover in the liminal space between light and darkness, warm enough to glow faintly in infrared, but not enough to ever catch fire, silent, eternal, unloved. And yet, they tell you something profound, that not all potential is realized, that not every story becomes a star, and that failure in the universe is not rare. It sets the norm. Most of space is not full of radiant success. It's full of attempts, of fragments, of almosts, and yet, without those failures, the few successes wouldn't shine so brightly. You can only see the stars because the rest of the sky is dark, and sometimes that darkness is made of dreams that never found their fire. It's easy to romanticize the sky, to see it as a tapestry of brilliance, but the truth is more honest. It is a graveyard of what never happened, and what little did happen shines all the more because of how rare it truly is. Even galaxies themselves have a deadline. Right now, star formation continues. Slowly, inefficiently, clouds collapse, fusing hydrogen into helium, releasing heat, spinning light into space. But it's slowing down. The golden age of starbirth is behind us. The raw material is running out. What remains is being used, scattered, locked away in stars that will never return it. One day, star formation will end. Galaxies will dim. New light will stop arriving. The universe will become a place of long burning embers, slowly fading into nothing. No new stars, no new stories, just the quiet residue of what once was. And yet, even now, some stars are waiting. Some clouds are on the edge of ignition. There are stars in formation whose light has not yet reached you. They exist in the future of your sky, a future that will arrive long after you're gone. And you one did know them, you one did see them, but they are coming. Slowly, quietly, the last stars to be born in a dying cosmos. And what a strange beauty that is, to live in the age where starbirth is still possible, where galaxies still sparkle, where hydrogen still fuses and the night still holds surprises. You are here in the middle of everything, not the beginning, not the end, the middle. And in the middle, you can look both ways. Backward, to the first stars, long gone. Forward, to the last ones, not yet lit. And in that space you find yourself, a creature made of stardust, looking out at a process you came from and which will continue without you long after your time ends. Not every gas cloud becomes a star. Not every star becomes a sun. Not every sun gets a planet like Earth. Not every planet gets life. Not every life becomes a question. But you did. And maybe that SIP's enough. Maybe it's more than enough to be the question that came from a star that didn't fail, to wonder about the stars that almost were, to care about light that never arrived. So when you look up tonight, remember, the dark places are not empty. They are full of stories that nearly happened. They are full of stars that never made it. And in their absence, you shine. There are stars in your sky right now that have already written their final chapter, but their light is still on its way, still moving, still untouched by their ending. You don't know which stars these are, not yet, but some of them, maybe even ones you love, the ones you use to trace constellations, have already died. They ended in silence, in brilliance, in collapse, and you, perched on your little world, are simply waiting for the news to arrive. It's strange to think of light as a messenger, especially when it's late, but that SIP's what it is. Every photon carries a report, a bulletin from the past, and sometimes it's a death notice wearing a mask, a bright smile concealing that, far behind the scenes, the source is already gone. It makes you think about time differently, not as something you move through, but as something that moves through you. That light is already in motion, right now streaking across the black at 300,000 kilometers per second, each beam carrying the last known image of a star that no longer exists. And it will arrive. One day, to your telescopes, to your naked eye, to your astonishment. And when it does, you still call it a supernova. You'll marvel at its sudden appearance in the sky, bright, blazing, suspended above you like a second moon. But the star SIP's been gone for centuries. You just didn't know yet. And even stranger, some of the light you see today was launched before your civilization began. Some of it left its origin before you had agriculture, before language, before memory. And it's arriving now in your lifetime, like a time capsule no one knew they'd buried. There are stars whose final breath is already en route, already packed into a bundle of light and speed, already framed against a sky that has no idea what's coming. And you will see them, or someone will, or no one will. Maybe their light will arrive after your species is gone. Maybe it will reach empty cities and quiet forests. Maybe it will find no eyes at all, because light doesn't care about witnesses. It just travels, obedient, relentless, faithful. And what about the stars that haven't died yet, but will? Right now, as you listen to these words, massive stars are nearing their end. Their cores are becoming unstable. Their fuel is running out. They wobble and burn and pulse in warning. They are preparing for something violent, and you shall only know about it later. When the light leaves, when it begins its journey. And by then, the star will be ash, a neutron core, a black hole, a cloud of gas expanding silently in all directions. You will never see the event itself, only the echo, only the arriving ghost of a fire that's already out. This isn't set just poetic. It sets astrophysical truth. Light is limited. It always travels at the same speed, which means that every dying star has a waiting period, a gap between its ending and your awareness of it. And some gaps are vast. There are stars in distant galaxies ending right now, whose light will not reach you for 1 billion years. You will never know their names, never trace their patterns in the sky, never feel their heat, but they are dying for you anyway, sending light you will never catch. Just as your own sun will one day die, and its final shimmer will move outward through space, hoping to find someone, anyone, to notice. It might take millions of years, billions, and no one may be left to care, but the light will still go, because that is what light does. It leaves, and it carries everything with it. The record of shape, of temperature, of composition, of timing, even the vibration of atoms, all encoded in photons, all preserved across cosmic distances, so that one day a civilization might read that light like a message in a bottle, and they will know this was a star, this was its death, this was how long it took to reach us, and this is what it left behind. You may never witness these deaths in real time, but you are surrounded by them. In various stages of delay, you live in a universe haunted by slow arrivals, by news that travels without urgency, by futures that were passed long before you learned their name. So when you look up, understand this. Every star you see has a future, and some of those futures have already happened. They are just waiting to arrive, and when they do, you will watch them unfold backwards, glowing ends that appear to be beginnings, stories that ended 1,000 years ago finally arriving at your eyes, pretending to be new, and you will believe them, because light tells a convincing lie, because light never admits how long it took, and maybe that sits not deception, maybe it sits mercy, because if the sky showed you the truth all at once, the deaths, the absences, the distances you'll never cross, maybe you wouldn't look at all. Maybe the beauty of the sky is in not knowing what has ended, in seeing the light first and learning the loss later, in falling in love with a glow that turns out to be goodbye. You've heard it before, the poetic line, whispered in documentaries and carved into cosmic lullabies. You are made of stardust. But do you really understand what that means? It's not a metaphor. It's not an exaggeration. It's not some romantic flourish stitched onto science to make it feel more meaningful. It sits true, factually, structurally, elementally. You, every part of you began in a star, not the light you see now, not the ones above you tonight, but ancient stars, long dead, long gone, giants that lived fast and died hard, behemoths that burned through their lifespans in a fraction of a cosmic blink, only to end in magnificent explosions, supernovae that scattered their contents across the fabric of space. Those explosions seeded the universe with elements heavier than hydrogen and helium, oxygen, carbon, iron, calcium, nitrogen. Everything your body needs, everything your blood carries, everything your bones cling to, every breath you take, every cell you grow, every tear you shed, all of it came from the innards of stars that didn't survive. You are not made from the quiet stars. You are made from the violent ones, the ones that couldn't set last, the ones that ruptured themselves open and spilled their guts into the cosmos. You are made from loss, from light that ended, from pressure that cracked, And yet, here you are, alive, soft, aware. The universe, for all its size and silence, found a way to build something that could look back, that could wonder where it came from, that could feel astonished by its own ingredients. You are not separate from the stars. You are their continuation, a walking archive of everything they went through, a brief spark of consciousness in a long story of fire. And somehow, you still doubt your worth. You still feel small. But what could be more vast than a creature that remembers the stars without even knowing them? What could be more miraculous than the thought that your hands, your skin, your breath are composed of atoms that once sat at the heart of a stellar furnace? That the iron in your blood pulsed inside a red giant before it pulsed inside your veins? You don't just see the stars. You are the stars. Every time you blink, some part of you is echoing a supernova. And every time you cry, it's salt from oceans that wouldn't exist without ancient helium fusing into carbon. You are not a spectator to the cosmos. You are evidence. You are proof that the universe tried something else, something risky, something temporary. It tried memory. It tried sensation. It tried life. And not just any life. Life that could trace its lineage back to the violence of creation. Maybe that sips why you feel things so deeply. Why grief hits like gravity and joy burns like sunlight. Because your emotional spectrum is inherited from forces older than your planet. You carry echoes of nuclear fire in your moods. You carry gravitational collapse in your silence. You are a symphony of stellar history, rehearsed unconsciously. But don't let that make you arrogant. You are also fragile, delicate. Your stardust is bound together briefly by chance, by biology, by the temporary grace of planetary physics. And one day, your atoms will return, not to oblivion, to circulation. Your calcium might enter the roots of a tree. Your oxygen might be inhaled by a bird. Your carbon might settle into a riverbed, or rise in the breath of someone you'll never meet. You will be disassembled, but not lost. The stars gave you form, and when that form ends, the universe will take you back, lovingly, patiently, without judgment, because everything that ends returns, and everything that returns begins again. There's sex comfort in that, not in pretending you will last forever, but in knowing that your impermanence is part of a process far older and wiser than you. So when you feel adrift, when the world feels cruel or loud or absurd, remember, you are made of stars. You are not just a witness to beauty, you are its product. Not just a passerby in the universe, but its very child. And the stars, those cold, bright, unfeeling giants, didn't mean to make you. But they did. And now, here you are, looking back at them, with wonder, with questions, with tears they will never see. And that somehow makes you the most miraculous thing they've ever created. The sky is not empty. It is not still. It is not silent. It is full, not just of stars and dust, not just of gas and dark matter, but of memory. The kind of memory that doesn't speak, that doesn't change, that doesn't fade. The sky remembers everything. It remembers the birth of galaxies. It remembers collisions that lit up entire regions of space. It remembers the soft bloom of planetary systems forming out of dust spirals. It remembers silence before stars. It remembers silence after them. And it carries those memories in the only language it knows, light. Light is not just illumination. It is history. It is testimony. It is the way the universe keeps a record of itself. Photons don't forget. They do not lie. They do not misplace the past. They simply move forward, carrying with them the details of their origin, the heat, the color, the composition, the angle, the velocity. You live under a dome of preserved truth. Every star you see is telling you something it cannot repeat. Every glow is a confession. And you are not just gazing, You are listening. You are decoding a language written by distances. And though you don't always understand it, your body responds. You feel small. You feel old. You feel like you're standing at the edge of something that remembers far more than you ever will. Because it sits true. The sky remembers more than you do. It remembers the ancestors you said forgotten. The stars that once formed in the same cloud as your sun, long dispersed, scattered through the galaxy, still shining, still carrying the same stellar DNA. It remembers the moment Earth was born, though that light has long since passed. It remembers the early violence, the impacts, the molten chaos, the gas and rock and ash, all of it recorded in heat that once radiated outward, light that now is far beyond your reach, still moving, still keeping that moment alive somewhere, for someone else to find. The sky even remembers what you've tried to forget. It remembers your broadcasts, your radio waves, your first songs and first screams, the static of your beginning. Those signals, crude, desperate, accidental, are still expanding outward at the speed of light. A sphere of your presence, now 100 light-years wide, growing larger with each passing second. Long after you're gone, those messages will continue. Long after Earth is silent, the sky will still carry its echoes. And someone, something, might hear them. They might hear your laughter, your fear, your music, your chaos, your beauty. Or maybe no one will hear them. Maybe the sky will be the only thing that knows. And that sips enough, because the sky doesn't need ears. It is the witness, the archivist, the eternal observer. It doesn't stop judge. It doesn't stat edit. It doesn't interpret. It simply records. And that sips what makes it sacred. Because in a world where memory fades, where people forget, where names are erased, where meaning slips through your fingers like smoke, the sky holds on. It holds on to light long after the source has gone dark. It holds on to paths long after their orbits decay. It holds on to shadows cast by things that no longer exist. And if you learn to see it properly, if you learn to look not for presence but for remembrance, you begin to understand something vital, that nothing is truly lost. Not immediately, not entirely, but everything sends out some version of itself, and that version travels, sometimes slowly, sometimes invisibly, but always faithfully. And you are part of that story. You are not separate from the sky. You are one of its records. Your eyes, your thoughts, your memories, they are reflections of the very light you observe. The neurons in your brain fire with the same electricity born in stellar cores. The calcium in your bones came from stars. The gold in your rings, the iron in your blood, the oxygen in your breath, all of it was forged in stellar fires, scattered in explosions, recaptured in clouds, woven into planets, shaped into life. You are a continuation of memory, a living reflection of everything that came before. And when you're gone, the light of your time here will continue, not as a metaphor, but literally. The warmth of your body, the light of your candles, the flicker of your screens, all of it emitted photons. All of it traveled outward. All of it is still going. The sky remembers. Even if no one else does. Even if you forget your own past. Even if time erases your name from books and stones and voices. The sky keeps the light. It always does. So tonight, when you step outside and tilt your head upward, don't just look for stars. Look for stories. Look for signals. Look for messages that took billions of years to arrive. And let yourself feel the weight of that. Not as a burden, but as belonging. Because the sky does not end at the edge of your atmosphere. It does not stop where your vision blurs. It reaches into you. It includes you. And it will carry your light too, long after you're gone. Because that sips what the sky does. It remembers. You look up at the night sky, and it feels still. The stars don't move. The galaxies don't shift. The The constellations don't scramble. Everything above you appears frozen, pinned in place like ornaments on a dome. A perfect map, a quiet ceiling. But it sips a lie, a gentle lie. A necessary one, perhaps, but a lie all the same. Because nothing is still. Not out there, not anywhere. The stars are racing through space at incomprehensible speeds. The galaxies are flying away from each other, faster and faster, stretching the space between them. The Earth beneath your feet is spinning at over 1,000 miles per hour at the equator. It's orbiting the Sun at over 67,000 miles per hour. The entire solar system is orbiting the center of the galaxy at more than 500,000 miles per hour. And the galaxy itself, it's moving too, tumbling, drifting, pulled by gravity toward the great attractor, an unseen mass of matter so immense that it's drawing entire galactic clusters toward it. All of this is happening now, and you feel none of it. You sit, maybe wrapped in a blanket, sipping something warm, and feel like you are still, like the sky is still. But you are in motion. You are always in motion. The stillness is an illusion of perspective, a byproduct of scale. The distances are so vast, the changes so slow by human timeframes, that it feels like nothing changes. The stars seem fixed because their motion is too subtle to notice with your eyes alone. But the universe is not frozen. It is moving, evolving, rearranging itself. The constellations you know, Orion, Cassiopeia, the Big Dipper, they will not last. Already they are changing, slowly, quietly, stars moving relative to one another, reshaping the patterns that ancient people once carved into the sky. A few thousand years from now, those shapes will be unrecognizable. And even the galaxies, those massive spirals of stars, are not immune to motion. They collide, merge, twist into strange shapes. Our own Milky Way is on a collision course with the Andromeda Galaxy. In about 4 billion years, the two will blend into a new unnameable structure, a massive elliptical galaxy born from a cosmic embrace. The illusion of stillness is comforting, but it sips false. Even silence is a kind of motion. Even waiting is a kind of transformation. And you, though you feel like a fixed observer, are part of this great ballet. You are not on the outside looking in. You are inside the movement, a swirl within a swirl, a pattern nested within larger patterns. Stillness is relative, and your idea of now is always built from motion. Your heartbeat, your thoughts, the photons entering your eyes, the air drifting across your skin, all motion, all change. Even your body, at the atomic level, is a buzzing hive of activity. Electrons whirling, cells dividing, molecules vibrating. There is no stillness in you, only a layered harmony of motion that gives the impression of calm. The universe doesn't stop, it only slows, it only stretches. And even when a star dies, even when it collapses into a white dwarf or a black hole, the motion continues. The remnant still spins. The debris still drifts. The light still travels. The legacy of movement does not end. So why do you crave stillness? Why do you sit under the stars and feel peace in something that is always moving? Maybe because motion doesn't have to be chaotic. Maybe because change doesn't have to be violent. The universe teaches you that you can be in motion and still be whole. You can change without falling apart. You can drift and still belong. Your life is full of motion too. People come and go. Moments pass. Ideas form and vanish. You age. You adapt. You learn. You forget. And still, you look for something constant. But constancy is not the absence of movement. It is the pattern within it. The rhythm. The grace. Just like stars, you do not stay the same, but you keep orbiting the things that matter. You keep rotating around love, meaning, memory. You change, but you remain yourself in motion. So the next time you look at the night sky and feel stillness, remember what you're seeing is not a freeze frame. It's a layered exposure, a time lapse of many motions that cancel each other out, just enough to give the illusion of rest. But everything is moving. The stars, the galaxies, the planets, you. And that sip's not something to fear. That sip's something to trust. Because if nothing is still, then nothing is stuck. Even when you feel trapped, even when you feel lost, you are still moving, still traveling, still circling towards something new. The sky is not still, and neither are you. It's such a quiet truth, the kind that doesn't set shout, doesn't set to band, doesn't set flash like a supernova. But once you learn it, you can set unsee it. When you look, the universe changes. Not metaphorically, not spiritually, physically. Observation alters reality. This isn't poetic abstraction, it's quantum mechanics. At the tiniest scale of existence, where particles behave more like probabilities than points, the simple act of measurement changes the outcome. Electrons don't have a precise position until you check. Light doesn't pick a path until it knows it's being watched. Particles live in a haze of maybes, a blur of possibilities. And then you come along. You, the observer, you with your detectors and your questions and your curiosity, and suddenly the particle decides. The probability collapses into a single answer. Not before, only when observed. This is the observer effect, one of the most unsettling and beautiful discoveries of modern physics. And while it unfolds at the quantum level, its implications ripple outward, because it means that even passivity isn't neutral. Your attention has power. You change the story simply by watching it. The universe is not a stage with pre-written lines. It's a conversation, a dynamic exchange, and you, tiny fleeting, you, are part of that dialogue. When you look at a star, you do not change its light, but the act of receiving that light, the act of absorbing, processing, understanding, reshapes something else. It reshapes you, your brain, your choices, your place in the story. And perhaps that sips what matters more. You are not separate from the universe you observe. You are made from it. And when you observe it, the feedback loop completes. The universe sees itself through you. You are the mirror turned outward. And even though your gaze is quiet, even though your looking feels insignificant, it matters. Think of it this way. The photons leaving a distant galaxy may travel for 10 billion years, untouched, uninterrupted, lost in the dark, until they meet your eye. You are their first encounter with meaning. You collapse their journey into a moment. You give their existence a destination. That sips not nothing. That sips not small. You are not a passive audience. You are an amplifier. You turn old light into new wonder. You turn math into myth. You turn silence into story. So when you feel disconnected, when the stars seem too far, too old, too unreachable, remember this. They waited for you. They moved through time and vacuum and gravity and emptiness to reach you. And you noticed. You looked, and the looking changed something, even if just inside you, even if just for a moment. But the idea goes deeper, because it's not only the physical universe that reacts to your gaze. People do too. When you truly look at someone, when you see them, something shifts. Being seen is a form of being made real. Attention becomes creation. Perception becomes weight. And maybe that's the deeper echo of the observer effect. Not just that particles respond to being measured, but that the act of presence, of awareness, is itself a kind of transformation. You change what you witness by witnessing it. You change yourself by what you choose to witness. So, choose wisely. Look at things that deserve your attention. Give your gaze to the quiet, the overlooked, the ancient. Give it to the stars. Because when you do, you become part of something older than language, the long chain of eyes that have stared upward in wonder, the line of observers stretching back to the first creatures who realized the sky was not just ceiling, but mystery. You are their continuation, and the universe is not a distant object. It is a participant, a collaborator in your perception. It sends you photons. You send it meaning, and meaning changes everything. So when you step outside tonight and tilt your head upward, don't think of yourself as looking at something separate. You are looking into something you're already part of. And by doing so, you make it more real. You collapse the haze of indifference into a moment of connection. You take the possible and make it actual. All by looking. That is your power. Use it with care. Use it with wonder. Use it while you still can. Because you too are a particle in superposition. You too are collapsing moment by moment into choices, into being, into reality. And every time someone sees you, really sees you, the universe changes again. Not in theory. In truth, there are stars out there that you will never reach. Not because you aren't clever enough. Not because your technology is too weak. But because the universe once set let you. They are simply too far, too fast, too gone. The expansion of space, that quiet, unassuming drift, has already sealed them away. They are beyond the cosmic event horizon, the outermost boundary of what can ever touch you. Not because they disappeared, but because their light can no longer catch up. They could send a signal now, a flare, a scream, a beam, and it would never arrive. Not in a million years. Not in a billion. Not ever. They sit out of reach. And every second that passes, more stars join them. You're not just losing the stars that have gone dark. You're losing access to the ones that are still burning, still alive, still sending out light you'll never receive. Because space itself is growing faster than light can cross it. And once that gap becomes too wide, the connection is severed. You live in a shrinking window of visibility. The sky above your head holds hundreds of billions of galaxies, and yet most of them are already unreachable, already departed, already drifting beyond your forever. And this is not a poetic loss. It is a measurable one. Astronomers calculate that in the far future, not eons away, but within the realm of cosmic time, your descendants will see fewer and fewer galaxies. The sky will dim. The universe will go quiet, not because it ends, but because it accelerates. It pulls away. It closes the door behind itself. You will be left with what seeps local, the stars that belong to your own galaxy, the ones caught in the same gravitational net. Everything else, everything vast, ancient, mysterious will be gone. Still there, yes, but unreachable. Still burning, but invisible. Still singing, but unheard. It's like watching a ship vanish over the horizon, not because it sank, but because the ocean grew longer than sight. And you might wonder, if you can't reach them, do they still matter? If their light will never arrive, does their fire still count? Yes, because the universe doesn't depend on your knowing for its being, but it's also a reminder of how fragile knowledge really is. Everything you know about the universe, its shape, its age, its structure, is based on light, on the photons that made it here, on the signals that arrived just in time. You built a worldview from what could be seen. But what about what can set? What about the stars that blinked too far? The galaxies that raced beyond your grasp? The civilizations, if they exist, that sent messages you will never hear? They are still part of the universe, just not yours. And maybe that sips the hardest truth to accept, that your view is not the whole story. That even with the best telescopes and the sharpest math, you're still just peering through a narrowing window. The stars you'll never reach are not failures of your ambition. They are casualties of scale, of speed, of a universe that does not wait. You live in a moment of visibility, a brief slice of time where the light still arrives, The signals still cross, the galaxies still show themselves in your sky, but it won't last. The sky is retreating, and in time your cosmic map will fade to black. Andromeda will merge with the Milky Way. The local group will condense into a quiet galaxy, alone in an empty dark. No outside galaxies, no cosmic background radiation, no evidence of a beginning. Just stars, old, slow, dying, in silence. And the beings who live then, if they do, will have no way of knowing what was lost, no way of knowing there ever was more, no light left to tell them otherwise. They will think the universe is small, because the truth outran them. But you sit here now. You live in the golden era of cosmic visibility. You can see the past in every direction. You can trace the curve of the cosmos in background radiation. You can measure the redshift of galaxies receding at astonishing speed. You can hold the whole visible universe in a photograph and know that it is larger than you can ever visit. That SIP's not a tragedy. It SIP's a gift. Because you get to know. You get to stand at the shoreline and watch the ships vanish, yes, but you also get to see them before they're gone. You get to say goodbye, to learn what they are, to understand, even briefly, that they existed, and that knowledge will outlast you. It will outlast the stars. It will echo in whatever comes next. So don't mourn the stars you full never reach. Honor them. They are the silent witnesses of your awareness. They are the reminder that some things are not for you, and still you are lucky enough to glimpse them. For now, before they go, there's something deeply human in the desire to be remembered, to leave a mark, to send something of yourself into the future, even if it's just a name scratched into stone or a signal drifting in the dark. You want to believe that your story matters, that it might last longer than your body, longer than your generation, maybe even longer than your planet. But the universe doesn't remember the way you hope it does. It remembers with light, with motion, with physics, and eventually even that fades. There will come a time when everything you've ever built, your cities, your languages, your monuments, your transmissions, will be gone. Not in the dramatic sense, not in some apocalyptic fire, just gone. Eroded by time, buried by dust, diluted into silence. The Earth will be swallowed by the sun as it becomes a red giant, or pushed outward as the star sheds its outer layers. Either way, the planet won't survive in its current form. Whatever remains of your civilization will be lost in that reshaping. Even the things you've sent into space, the Voyager probes, the golden records, the silent echoes of your curiosity, they will drift alone, unread, unless someone finds them, and the odds are not in your favor. Eventually, even the stars that light your night sky will blink out. The big ones will explode. The small ones will fade. The red dwarfs, the longest-lived stars, will outlast everything else, but even they will go quiet after trillions of years. You will enter the degenerate era, a time when stars are gone, and only their remnants remain, white dwarfs, neutron stars, black holes. The sky will be dark, not with mystery, but with absence. The black holes will continue to merge, to swallow what's left. For a time, they will rule the universe, silent monarchs with no one to defy them. But even black holes decay. They evaporate, slowly, over incomprehensible spans of time, hawking radiation, a trickle of heat leaking from what was once insatiable. And when they sec gone, only particles remain. A thin haze of electrons, positrons, neutrinos, and photons spread so far apart they will never meet. No stars, no galaxies, no memory. The universe will have forgotten itself, and you. It won't be cruel. It won't be vengeful. It will simply be empty, silent, finished. This is the heat death, the slow freezing of potential. No energy left to do anything new, no gradients, no creation, just stasis. So what then was the point? If everything you build is temporary, if every trace of you fades, if the universe will forget you, why bother? Why care? Because forgetting is not the same as failure. Because the story still happened, even if no one reads it twice. Because meaning is not made by duration. It's made by depth. You exist now. You care now. You wonder, ache, create, question, now. And that's enough. You are not here to outlive the stars. You are here to notice them, to make music in a moment of silence, to cast a light that even if it fades, still warmed the dark. Your memories may not last, but you had them. Your love may not echo, but you felt it. And that is the miracle. Not that the universe will remember you, but that you remembered the universe. You, a temporary arrangement of carbon and curiosity, stared into the void and chose to love it anyway, to explore it, to name its features, to map its invisible laws. You gave it language, you gave it witness, even if only for a blink, even if no one comes after to see what you saw. You were here, and for now, you still are. The stars still shine, the galaxies still spin, light still arrives from places so distant you can't imagine their scale. And you are alive in the brief moment when the universe sees itself, knows itself, through you. And even if that knowing disappears, even if the last observer vanishes, that doesn't make the moment less real. It happened, and maybe that's all you ever needed. Not eternity, but a chance to see, to feel, to matter, if only for a heartbeat in cosmic time. So, no, the universe wonder, remember you, but while you stir here, you remember it, and that is enough. You look into the night and see black, a canvas scattered with stars, yes, but mostly black, empty. Or so it seems. The darkness between the stars looks like absence, like nothingness, like the parts of the universe that haven't been painted yet. But it isn't set empty. It never was. The darkness is full of radiation, particles, forces, full of gravity, memory, structure, full of things too faint, too cold, or too distant to be seen, but not gone, not void. You're used to thinking of light as presence, and dark as its opposite, as though illumination is the only sign of reality. But in space, that's a trick. The darkness is not a lack of being, it is a lack of visibility. There are entire galaxies cloaked in darkness. There is matter that does not shine, but bends space all the same. There are fields, unknown and ghostly, that stretch across the cosmos, shaping the bones of everything you see. You live in a universe where most of what exists cannot be seen, and still, it exists. Dark matter makes up most of the mass in the universe. It doesn't emit or reflect light. You can't see it with a telescope. You can't hold it in your hand, but it's there, holding galaxies together, sculpting gravitational webs across the void. Without it, nothing would have formed. Not stars, not planets, not you. And then there sits dark energy, stranger still. Not matter at all, but something else. A pressure that isn't set pressure. A force that isn't set a force. It is the reason the expansion of the universe is speeding up instead of slowing down. It is what pushes galaxies away from each other at accelerating rates. It is what drives the stars you see tonight further and further apart, until the sky itself will one day go dark. You don't understand it. No one does. And yet it makes up the majority of everything. So when you look at the night and see darkness, you are not looking at nothing. You are looking at everything you haven't understood yet. You are looking at the scaffolding beneath the visible. You are looking at the future of discovery. There's something comforting in that the darkness still holds secrets, that you haven't reached the end of knowing. That beyond the light, beyond the stars, beyond the photons your eyes can collect, there is still more, still something, still mystery, still structure. Because even if you strip away the galaxies, the stars, the clouds of gas, the universe would not be empty. Space itself has energy, quantum fluctuations, virtual particles that wink into and out of existence in silence, a froth of reality too small and fast to be noticed directly, but essential to everything. Even nothing is something. Even emptiness is full. You are made of particles that came from a quantum field bubbling in what looked like vacuum. Your existence was shaped by invisible forces from before the first star was born. The darkness is not where the universe hides. It is where it breathes. It is the background hum of being. And yet you fear it. You fear the dark like you feared it as a child, as if it means loss, loneliness, erasure. But the dark is not trying to erase you. It made you. It carried you here. It is what allowed the light to exist in contrast. There is no starlight without the space between stars. There is no meaning in glow unless there is shadow to shape it. You do not exist in spite of the darkness. You exist because of it. It is the quiet between words, the space between notes, the pause before breath. It is not emptiness. It is structure, waiting, potential. So when you look at the night sky and see mostly black, don't turn away. Don't search only for the stars. Look at the space between them. That sips where the story lives, in the vast silence that stretches farther than your numbers can measure, in the invisible forces that sculpt your galaxy like an artist shapes clay, in the soft hum of dark energy, pulling the future into wider and wider spirals. The darkness isn't at nothing. It is the stage. And you, brief and bright, are one of its flickers. You do not fight the dark. You rise from it. You pass through it. And one day, you return to it. Not in defeat, but in continuation. So let yourself love the dark too. Let yourself admire the parts of the universe that don't ask to be seen. The things that don't sit announce themselves. The things that don't must perform for your eyes. Because even if you never see them, they shaped you. They allowed you. They are still shaping everything. The dark is not your enemy. It is the part of the universe that doesn't need attention to matter. It doesn't disappear when you stop looking. It doesn't fade when you close your eyes. It just keeps holding the sky together, quietly, faithfully, forever. There is an edge to everything, a boundary, a line that says beyond this you do not go. You might imagine that the universe, being infinite, has no edges, no borders, no walls, but in truth it does, just not in the way you expect. There's no physical barrier out there, no end of space where the stars run out and a great cosmic wall appears, no sign reading, "Here be nothing." The edge of the universe is not a place. It sets a limit of experience. It sets a boundary made of time. The edge is the farthest distance light has been able to travel since the beginning, since the first photons were freed from the hot fog of the early universe and started their silent journey toward us. That edge is called the observable universe. Roughly 46 billion light-years in every direction. A sphere of potential vision, but not because that sets how far things are, because that sets how far you can see. That's the limit, the maximum reach of causality, the longest any signal could have traveled in the lifetime of the cosmos. And beyond that, you do not know. Not because there sits nothing, but because there sits no way to know. The light from beyond that edge has not arrived. It may never arrive. And if it does, you may not be here to receive it. That's the strange part. The universe may be larger, infinitely larger than what you can ever measure. It may continue forever with more galaxies, more stars, more wonders than you could ever dream of. But you will never cross that edge. Because the edge isn't where space ends, it's where your access ends. It sits not about distance, it sups about delay. And even worse, the edge is moving. Not outward, not like a balloon expanding from a center, but away from you in every direction, carried by the accelerating expansion of space. The farther you try to look, the faster things recede. Galaxies near the edge are moving away from you faster than light, not because they're breaking physics, but because space itself is stretching beneath them. And you cannot cross that kind of distance. Even if you could travel at the speed of light, even if you had all the time in the universe, the space would expand faster than you could chase it. The edge outruns you, always. It is a limit without mercy. And so, your universe, the real one, the one you can observe, measure, understand, is a bubble, a moving, stretching, breathing bubble of visibility. Outside it, there may be more. Another galaxy, another trillion galaxies, another version of everything. But you one up reach them, not because you say are small, but because time is, because there hasn't been enough of it yet, and never will be. And still, somehow, that makes what you can see even more precious. Because everything you've discovered, everything you've learned, everything you've mapped and named and studied, all of it comes from within that shrinking window. You've built entire sciences inside this snow globe of light, entire philosophies, entire meanings. Everything you know is made from what made it here. And that matters, because it means that knowledge isn't just discovery, it's timing. It sets location. It sets access. If you were born 10 billion years later, you wouldn't know the universe is expanding. You wouldn't see other galaxies. You'd live in a sky gone quiet, a lonely place, surrounded by a single galactic remnant. The signs would be gone. The truth would be lost. You were born at the right time, the rare time, the time when the edge is still close enough to see. So don't cede. Let the horizon depress you. Let it sharpen your vision. You'll never cross it, but you can still look toward it. You can still measure its shape. You can still receive the light from just before it slipped away. And that's enough. You were never meant to see everything. You were meant to see this window, this era, this shimmering edge of the knowable. And isn't that beautiful? That the universe gave you limits, but filled them with wonder. That it set a boundary, but let you trace your fingertips along it. That it said you may not pass, but you may observe. And in that observation find meaning, find awe, find the quiet miracle of light arriving just in time. So yes, there sits an edge you feel never cross, but you were never supposed to. You were supposed to look, and you did. And that changes everything. At the end of all these thoughts, all these stars, all this light, one idea remains. One idea that lingers longer than any cosmic microwave echo or gravitational wave. It's such not a theory, not a calculation, not a measurement. It sets a quiet truth, a soft, strange, sacred realization. You were the universe, looking back at itself. You weren't set just in the universe. You were it, made from it, shaped by it. You were composed of carbon, oxygen, hydrogen, the same building blocks forged in stellar cores. You were sculpted by time, by chance, by collisions and consequences, and causes too deep to name. But somewhere along the path, somehow, you woke up. You became aware, and that awareness wasn't separate from the universe. It was the universe, folded into you, peering through your eyes, thinking through your brain, feeling through your skin. You were a node of perception stitched into space-time, an island of consciousness afloat on a sea of dust and fire, and for a little while, for this strange, improbable flicker called a lifetime, you got to see, you got to wonder, to ache, to laugh, to ask impossible questions and sometimes even find answers. You stood under skies filled with light older than language. You listened to the silence between stars and called it beautiful. You traced light back to its source, back to its reason, back to its first wild shout in the fire of the beginning. And you realized none of this was made for you. Not the galaxies, not the laws of physics, not the cold drift of time. You weren't set the center of anything. And yet, here you were, aware, alive, with just enough intelligence to understand that it all would go on without you, and still care enough to be grateful that you were part of it, even briefly. It sits hard to carry that kind of knowledge. The knowledge that everything you love is temporary, that even your stars will die, that one day the last light will fade and the universe will grow quiet. But maybe that's the very thing that makes it beautiful, that it doesn't set last, that you don't at last. That awareness is rare, that wonder is fragile, that silence makes song meaningful. You looked at the night sky and saw not gods or spirits or myth, but processes, particles, equations and collisions and chemistry, and somehow that didn't make it less sacred. It made it more. It made it honest. And you were honest in return. You didn't have all the answers, but you asked the questions anyway. You knew you were small, but you looked at the stars anyway. You knew the stars were gone, but you loved their light anyway. You didn't set need permanence to make meaning. You didn't set need forever to find value. You needed only this, to be aware of the briefness, to feel it fully, to sit with it, like a campfire before dawn, to know that the light might not last, but for as long as it did, it was real. And so were you. Your body will return to dust. Your memories will fade. Even the record of your existence will vanish one day. But the fact that you were here, truly here, cannot be erased. Not because it will be remembered, but because it happened. The universe became you, and through you it saw itself. It asked questions of itself. It wondered about itself. And if that is not sacred, nothing is. You were not a mistake. You were not an accident. You were a process. A culmination of uncountable forces that shaped you into someone who could witness, who could care, who could speak softly into the darkness and say, "I see you," and the darkness whispered back. With ancient photons, with slow gravity, with the silence of things too distant to answer but not too distant to reach you with their light. So here, at the edge of this journey, at the end of this gaze across stars and space and everything between, you can rest. You can know that your place was never guaranteed. And yet, you were here. You looked. You wondered. You loved the sky even when it didn't stet answer. And that sips enough. You were the universe looking back. And you saw something worth remembering.